My engagement evening was filled with happiness until my sister's beloved son dropped my special cake onto the floor and made the entire table laugh. Then my mother sent me a message saying I was no longer part of the family forever. I stayed silent, removed my name from every debt, and by midnight their 66 missed calls were glowing on my screen. My sister's son dropped the special cake I had made onto the floor during my engagement evening, and everyone started laughing. 10 minutes later, my mother sent me a message in the family group saying that I no longer had any connection to this family, and instead of replying, I just stared at my phone screen as their 66 missed calls piled up before the night ended. My name is Emma Collins. I am 31 years old, and this all happened in a small town in Ohio where I had lived for the past 8 years. That evening was my engagement celebration. It was not some huge wedding-style event. It was just family, a few close friends, and my fiancé Daniel's parents. We held the celebration in my mother's backyard because she always said, "Big family moments are always more beautiful when they happen at home." I started preparing for the event 3 days earlier. I placed white tablecloths on the tables, arranged flowers in small glass bottles, and made the cake myself. It was not an ordinary cake. It was my grandmother's recipe, the one she had passed down to my mother, and my mother had never fully shared the instructions with me. I had spent weeks trying to recreate that exact flavor. When I placed the cake on the table, my sister Rachel only said, "Not bad. You finally got something right." I ignored her. I did not want an argument that day. Rachel had always been like that. Everything was a competition. If I got a new job, she would immediately mention how much more her husband earned. If I bought something, she would say she owned something better. For years, I convinced myself it was normal. The celebration began. Daniel held my hands and placed the ring on my finger. Everyone clapped. My mother was smiling. At least that was what I thought. Then Rachel's son Jack, who was 10 years old, walked over to the cake. "Can I carry it?" he asked. I said, "No, Jack. It's heavy. I'll cut it myself." He laughed. "I can handle it." Rachel called from across the yard, "Let him do it, Emma. He's not a little kid anymore." I looked at her and said again, "Just leave it. It could fall." But Jack reached for the plate anyway. A few seconds later, the cake slipped from his hands and landed directly on the wooden floor. The room went quiet. Then my uncle laughed. "It's okay. It's just a cake." A few people started smiling. Jack was laughing too. I looked at the cake lying on the floor. My grandmother's work, my late nights, and a small piece of my engagement celebration were all sitting there. I simply said, "It's okay." Rachel came over and said, "Emma, don't be so serious. He's a kid." I looked at her. I told him not to. He shrugged. "So, are you going to be angry at my son now?" I did not answer. I thought the matter would end there. But about an hour after the celebration, my mother came over to me. She was holding her phone. "We need to talk about something," she said. I thought she was going to talk about the cake. But instead she said, "You embarrassed Rachel's son in front of everyone today." I was confused. I didn't say anything to him. She turned her phone toward me. There was a message in the family group chat. My mother had written, "Emma needs to stay away from the family for a while. She always creates problems." Then she sent me a separate message. "You will not be part of this family anymore until you admit your mistake." I stared at that message for a long time. Daniel came over. "What happened?" I showed him my phone. He stayed quiet for a moment. Then he said, "This isn't really about the cake, is it?" I shook my head. No, it was not about the cake. It was about all the years I had ignored. Rachel was my older sister. Since childhood, she had always been the favorite. When she got accepted into college, my mother decorated the entire house. When I got accepted, she simply said, "That's good." When Rachel bought her first car, everyone celebrated. When I bought my first car with my own money, my mother asked, "Why did you spend that much?" I always thought maybe I was imagining things. I told myself every family had differences. But then the small things started adding up. When my father became sick, I spent 3 months taking him to appointments and staying with him at the hospital. Rachel came only once a week, but whenever the family gathered, everyone said, "Rachel took such good care of him." I stayed quiet. When my mother's house needed repairs, she asked me for help. I spent 6 weekends there. I painted walls, cleaned rooms, and carried supplies. Rachel sent food one day. But she was the one everyone remembered. I still said nothing. because I believed leaving family behind was not something you did easily. The day after the engagement, I sat in my room and looked through my bank accounts. I pulled out a folder containing records from the past several years. Then I remembered something. I had taken several bills under my name to help my mother. The new refrigerator. The roof repairs. Some of Jack's school expenses when Rachel's ex-husband was not sending money. I was always told, "We'll take care of it later." But later never came. I wrote everything down. Then I made a decision. I was not going to fight with anyone. I was simply going to remove my name from places where my presence was only useful for their benefit. Over the next 2 days I made phone calls. I spoke with the insurance company. I spoke with the bank. I started the process of removing myself from every shared responsibility where my name was attached. I did not send a long emotional message. I did not accuse anyone. I simply completed the paperwork. On the third day Rachel called. I did not answer. Then my mother called. I did not answer. Then messages from other family members started coming in. "Why are you so angry? Just talk to them. This is a huge overreaction." I did not respond to anyone. Around midnight I looked at my phone. 66 missed calls. Some were from my mother. Some were from Rachel. Some were from people who had laughed that day. The next morning my mother came to my house. She got out of her car and stood at my front door. "Emma, we need to talk." I opened the door. She did not look as confident as she usually did. She said, "You changed everything. The bank, the paperwork, everything." I said, "Yes." "Why?" I looked at her. "Because you told me I was not part of the family." I thought, why should I keep being responsible for things where I no longer have a place? She became quiet. For the first time she had no answer. A few minutes later Rachel arrived too. She said, "You still haven't forgiven my son." I said, "I forgave Jack. He is a child." Then I looked at her. "But I cannot forgive the people who kept making me the problem every single time." She wanted to say something but she stopped. I did not slam the door. I simply said, "I need to take care of my own life now." A lot changed after that day. I still have the pictures from my engagement celebration. I also have the picture of the cake. In one photo the cake is on the floor, people are laughing and I am standing there quietly. Sometimes I look at it. I no longer regret that cake falling. Because that was the moment I understood something. Some things cannot be put back together after they break. Some things simply end. And that night when my phone rang 66 times I turned it off for the first time. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like and subscribe for more emotional stories that inspire, surprise and stay with you. Thank you for spending your time with us and being part of this community. Your support means a lot and helps us continue sharing powerful stories every day.